Hey everyone, welcome back to another episode of All in the Name of Growth. I'm really excited today actually to have a conversation with a special guest, Prithvi Madhukar. She is the CEO of The Digital Nomad and also a brand new author. And I'm really excited to talk about that a little bit. We'll kind of follow her journey along and talk about kind of what she's done to get to this point to become a new author and kind of be in control of her own life. She's come through a lot. So before we jump into all of that, though, let me just first say welcome, Prit. I'm so excited to have you on.
Oh, well, thank you so much, Christy. I'm so excited to be on this show. I know we're going to have such an awesome time, and I can't wait to get into my story and, of course, hear your thoughts on it as well.
Yeah, awesome. Awesome. Okay, yeah. So Prit and I had a previous conversation. For those of you who have listened to my podcast for any length of time, you know that I kind of like vet people before I allow them on the show. And I just loved Prit's story. I'm just so drawn to it. And I love what she talks about and just her as a person. She's a great person. Um, so the kind of interesting thing and the thing that the reason why I wanted to bring her on, and I feel like the part of her story that I really wanted to kind of emulate and take a deep dive into is just this idea of when life throws crap your way that is not the thing you were expecting, that there is a way to overcome it. And Prit's story is like the epitome. It's like if you looked up in the dictionary what that means, it's like her story of just overcoming and taking these like major setbacks in life and still being able to move forward and transfer your life actually into something that you had never even imagined it could be. So Prit, originally you were going to school for engineering, right? So
Oh, yes.
what made you decide engineering?
So the culture and the society that I grew up in, basically, there are only three professions that you can take that people will respect you for. So that's being a doctor, being a lawyer, being an engineer. So I mean, my parents never pressured me, but both of them are engineers themselves. But I think that it was just the common perception of everything around me that pressured me to take engineering. And it's not that I didn't like engineering. I'm a very curious person by nature, but I just wasn't passionate about it. And this was at around 20, I think I was 20 years old in my second year of engineering. It was pretty clear that I did not see the next 40 years of my life in this field. I was feeling suffocated. Everyone around me seemed to have their life figured out. And for me, that was a very scary thought, you know? At that point, I didn't know what to do. I didn't even think that there was another possibility of taking another route. And at this time, a very interesting story happened to me. My dad, he's a very typical Indian parent. I was lazing around the house during the summer holidays of my engineering. And he comes up to me and he says, why don't you go get some real world experience? Go out there, get an internship. And then I was not at all interested in engineering. So naturally, I was like, with the marks that I have, I don't think anyone's going to hire me. And he laughed. My mom was not amused, but he did laugh. And, it was a joke at that time. So what my dad did was the next day he took me to his office. Both my parents are entrepreneurs themselves. They run their own successful businesses. So my dad took me to his office and I went really grumpily, okay, because I did not want to have anything to do with engineering. This was not what I wanted. And I mean, I just didn't want to do anything that my dad told me to do, basically. It was just all those hormones as well. So there I was at his office, and my dad makes me sit on his chair. And then he brings an employee and he says, why don't you just ask them what they need and then help them out with whatever it is? And so I went with the employee, and they basically just needed some help for me to figure out the grammar on the website. And, I'm a writer as well as I've got a pretty good grasp on English from a very young age. So I helped them with the sentences, fixing the grammar. Then there was another page where I felt the colors on that page did not match the entire website. And so I fixed that. Then I went on to Facebook. At that time, Facebook was in the vogue. This was, I think, 10 years down, 10 years back. And so I helped to write captions, and I absolutely loved every single minute of it, Christy. I couldn't understand how everything was just fitting into my mind. I was just able to strategize. I was able to figure out what was not working, what was working for that company, and everything just fit. And even at that time, parallelly, I was actually strategizing college fests instead of attending classes. Let me mention that. So I was, I was creating these college fests. I was organizing flash mobs, I was dancing, I was choreographing, I was doing all of these things. And I would feel so passionate. 8 hours in a day would just fly by and I would not even realize it going by. And that was the kind of passion that I was looking in my life. And I'd feel sad at that point because, any of these routes, they're not really the norm. And even if you did pursue, everybody would think that you were a destined failure. If you did manage to find success, it would just be chalked off as sheer dumb luck. So at that point, I was really confused. I didn't know what to do. And after I completed my degree, I did not even apply to a single job. I said, you know what? I've always been interested in business. Both my parents are entrepreneurs, so I've naturally been inclined to starting my business someday. So why not I do my MBA? So I applied to MBA universities, got into a couple of them, got into a really nice one in Rochester, New York. So I left India at that point, and then I came to Rochester. And in my first marketing class, it was one of the courses that I took. My professor is standing up front and she's kind of like asking questions just to gauge the knowledge of the class and where she should start with, what's the starting point. And there I was, like a total nerd, Christy. I'm just raising my hand for every single question. And I was so surprised. It wasn't normal questions. It was a marketing campaign from Coca-Cola from 10 years ago that I remembered, and it was really impactful for me, or a Maggie campaign that I kind of visualized or analyzed 3 years ago. And in that moment, it hit me that all my life I'd been drawn towards marketing, and I just didn't know it was called marketing. And so that was the first steps for me to find my passion. And I was very lost during my engineering. It was just an absolute mess. And for me to have found my passion for marketing, I really felt like I could breathe again. I had finally figured what I wanted to do with my life and my career. And my story actually starts there. The dip actually starts there. And so after I completed my MBA, really, really happy. I found my life, my passion, all of those things. I found a great job at a top solar firm in New York, and I worked there on the student visa. So on your student visa for an international student, you are allowed to work for a year, and then your employer has to convert that student visa into a work visa. They applied for you, and then it's a lottery. In 2019, when my employer applied for me, there were 200,000 applications, and out of which 85,000 were projected to be processed. Mine wasn't. And that was just a huge bummer.
How long had you been into the States at that point?
3 years.
And you wanted to stay?
I wanted to stay because it was the place where I'd found my passion. I'd found myself, to be honest, because of everything that had been going on in engineering. I think I was pretty lost. So for me, I think I had a very personal attachment to New York as a place because it was the place that I had found myself and found my life and my purpose and all of those things. And frankly, I just wanted to be like everyone else for the first time. I'd been an odd duck for quite some time, and then everyone found their passion. So I was like, oh yeah, let me do this. Let me do the whole staying in US thing.
So in the States, did you feel like, so I actually had another guest on who was from the Philippines, and her story is very, very similar to yours in that she wanted to go into marketing too. And in their it's very much about like nursing and doctors and lawyers as well. And she was just like, I really want to go into business. I really want to go into marketing. And she was also feeling the exact same pressure. But she grew up in the United States. And so her family was here and her community was here, and the Filipino community was surrounding her as she was growing up and trying to make those decisions. And everybody was expecting, had these expectations for her. But you kind of left that in India when you came to New York. And did you find that it was easier for you to pursue your passion here than it would have been for you to do that in India? Like, I know that you had, when you got your MBA, that was still in, was that still in India? You got your MBA?
No, I got it in New York.
You got it here. Okay. So was it easier for you to, and what did your parents think about that you were coming to the United States to pursue an MBA instead of following up with engineering?
So the MBA thing, they were always okay with. They were completely fine with me because both of them are business owners themselves. So I guess for them, because I wasn't happy about engineering, they were completely fine with that. But I think that they expected me to take up a more math-oriented subject like accounting or finance. You
Mhm.
know, again, that's a perception
Right.
that Indian communities have, and it's, I think, also very Asian mentality. The
Yeah.
whole what is that continent actually believes
Yeah.
in that. So
Yeah.
when I told my parents that I want, and I think this is the first time I'm telling this out loud, but when I told my parents for the first time that I wanted to take up marketing, they were shocked. They were not happy. And frankly, my mom was very accepting. She's like, okay, you know what? Are you happy? And I said, yes. And then she said, that's fine. Whatever, do whatever you want. My dad actually, and he is the most amazing person in the world, and he's very friendly. He actually was not at all happy. And my dad has never been someone to tell me what to do or what not to do. But at that point, there was a lot of friction between us. And for 6 months, he actually didn't talk to me anything about my career. He would ask me, he would call me up, we would, be laughing and chatting, but there was always this one part of the conversation that none of us would ever touch, because I think he too was processing that information. He didn't know what exactly was going to happen, or even if I would find success in that. And my mom, for a very long time, thought marketing was advertising, and she didn't understand that I'm into marketing strategy and not advertising, though it wouldn't have made any difference. But I think she was not clear. She didn't even want to bring up that topic because she thought that it would cause fights between us. And the time that my dad actually understood and accepted the marketing side of me was when he came to New York in October of 2018. I was working then, and he saw how everybody respected my expertise, my knowledge, and my marketing acumen. And that was when it hit him. It hit him that, okay, his daughter's doing something that she's good at, and she can actually be successful in that. So that was a pivoting point in my relationship with him as well. And it was from that moment that he started talking to me about my career, what my next steps could be. And both of them actually started researching about what marketing really was. And when I came back, to India to start my own business, oh, both of them were so supportive. I really could not have done it without both of them. But there was that period of friction. And for those of you out there, I really want to say that there may be times in your life that the people you love or the people who love you may not really fully acknowledge what you want to do or what you want to pursue. One, if you're really, really sure about making a difference, if you're really sure about pursuing your passion and you're sure that you've got it in you to do it, I would say respectfully do it. Understand where they're coming from. They're coming from a place of love. They're coming from a place of confusion because they have no idea what you're doing. And they're also coming from a place of protection, that natural instinct that they have. So I would say respectfully, try to sit down with them, try to explain what you're doing. But if they still don't understand, you've got to do what is right for you. And eventually, I promise you, they will see. And even if they don't, okay, even if it's probably that long a time that you can't wait, the fact that you're doing something you love is going to be more powerful than that. And that's what I want to say. So that period was really painful for me in terms of like that relationship with my father and that little bit of rockiness. But I kept doing what I wanted to do because I was that
Mhm.
sure about it. And I think that's where it led them to accepting what I wanted to do in my life.
Yeah, I love that. I love the kind of the breakout there that you shared with everybody, because I think that a lot of times, and obviously cultures are different across the world, and some, and even I guess there are even subcultures within communities, in certain types of families or whatever, where there can be that kind of demand placed upon them
Mm,
that they rise up to a certain level and that they perform at a certain level, they become a certain thing, or whatever that looks like. It could be in athletics, or it could be in their profession, or in the things that they pursue, becoming an Olympian or whatever. I think that it is really important, first and foremost, to be true to yourself. And I think that is
yes.
awesome that you did that you were willing to go against the grain. And I know that was probably really difficult for your parents, because they were still in India and they still had
Yeah,
that community and they still had that pressure, and people were going to ask them, well, what's your daughter doing in the United States? And for them to be like,
absolutely.
oh, she's pursuing an MBA for marketing. People are probably like, what does that even mean? Right? Because it's
Yeah,
not even a thing that's in people's heads.
yeah,
that is a respectable career, if you
No,
will.
it isn't. No.
And so I'm sure
I
that
do
they,
want to point out something, Christy, though. I think that one thing is all about perception. Like back then, my parents would say, "Oh yeah, she's doing marketing," and then they would like kind of, kind of put down their head. But today, they're like, "She's in marketing," and
sure.
it's all about how you project it. So
Mhm.
because they speak with so much pride, I think people's perception just changes about the fact that I'm in marketing. So I think it's also about how confidently you tell people, or the people who love you tell other people. If they accept it, then there's nothing like it.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, and that's true of yourself, right? That's true of your
Yes,
own story and the way that
absolutely.
you talk about yourself and the things that you're pursuing. If you if you talk about it in confidence, it totally changes the way that others accept that. But if you're like
Mm.
shy or I mean, and that's true in business, if you have a
Mm.
service that you're offering or a product that you're offering and you do it with your head down versus with
Yes,
your head held high, people receive that very, very
yes.
differently. Um, yeah, I think that that's it. I just love that you shared that part of it because the perception of it is very, very different. And I do have to say that I think that it's amazing what you've done because every choice that we make in our life can create a ripple effect for good or for bad, right? Like it goes out into the community. And I'm just thinking about the other small girls that are going to come behind you, that their parents heard your parents say with confidence, she's in marketing. And they're like, oh, well, maybe as the times change, maybe it isn't just three careers, maybe pursuing business is something, and maybe pursuing marketing is an option. And it just opens up if nothing more, I mean, maybe it doesn't totally open up their minds to possibilities, right? But maybe it plants that seed so that when something like that comes up for some other small girl in India who wants to pursue something other than being an engineer, doctor, or lawyer, that it gives their path just a little bit easier go. And I think that that's amazing. And I so admire and respect that about what you've done because it's not easy to go against the grain. Okay. So let's go back. So you were not able to get your visa to be able to stay in the States and you had to go back to India. And at that point, where was your head at?
Oh, I was devastated. My best friends were there. I was leaving a job. I just figured my life out, Christy, after, years of confusion and years of feeling lost. And I really just wanted to hang on to that for as long as I wanted to. And it was hard. It was really, really hard. It was during this time I started getting anxiety attacks because I didn't know what kind of future I would have. And I really didn't think that I would ever be happy again. And I don't say this to be dramatic. I genuinely felt that during that entire period because I didn't think that any life that I would have from this incident would ever compare to the life that I would have in New York. Of course, 3 years down the line, I know how wrong I was. But at that moment, everything had just shattered. And in a lot of communities, and I'm sure you'll agree with me, Christy, there is this common perception that you have to be in a certain company or a certain city or a certain country or a certain place or even a certain field for you to feel successful or be viewed as successful. And that was really, really writing me down as well, because I was no longer going to be in the country that everybody perceived, oh, this is the only country that you will ever be successful in. And not just that, I could hear every single person around me like whispering, saying, she's done for. Like, her career is not even started and it's over. And I think every single thought, people's pity, people's, I guess, jealousy, I don't know what it was, but whatever it was really, really getting to me as well. And it was in that moment, my sister also was in New York at the same time. So thankful that she was. But she also, she was like kind of like my drawing board or my resonating, what do you call
The
that?
sounding board.
Sounding board, yes. I was like, drawing board? No, I think it sounds it's different. Yeah, she was like my soundboard. And I told her at that time, I don't know what to do. I don't know what to do now. I don't know what to do tomorrow. I can't see a way out of this. And then, at that point, I was feeling really, really low about the whole thing. And she said, you know what? This is pretty big stuff. You don't need to know what to do. You don't need to know what to do today. You don't even need to know what to do next month or even 2 months from now. Just figure it out when you have to figure it out. And I think because she said it in such a calm voice, it actually calmed me down a lot. It was around this time that I started to understand how to cope with reality, how to embrace the change, and figure out steps to take from where I was instead of where I thought I would be. And I think that whole process, that mindset change, I feel like I've aged a million years, to be honest, after starting this entrepreneurial journey. The amount of changes that I have made in terms of my mindset, it's helped me so much in my personal as well as in my professional life. But that was the starting point. And at that point, I thought, well, I'm already at ground zero, Christy. I mean, I can't go lower than this. I have to sit down. I have to put my resumes out on LinkedIn. I have to do this. And at that point, I was like, okay, you know what? I was planning to start my business 10 years from now, but what if I start right now? You know, what if I made some sort of light in this darkness? And then if it didn't work out a year from now, I could just quit and go back to putting my resumes online. But if I didn't take advantage of the fact that I was already at ground zero, then I think maybe I would regret it. So that's when I started putting my profiles on freelance websites. I started out as a freelancer before I started my business. I did freelancing for a year. After I was kind of confident, I'd got my steps back and my mojo, I guess I would say, I figured out, okay, this is something that I can see sustaining for a very long time. And then in August 2020, in the middle of a pandemic, actually, I set up my company while I was in India. I set up my company in the US, and I haven't looked back since. I mean, today I'm a YouTuber, I'm a podcaster, I'm an Etsy shop owner. What else? I'm also a Skillshare teacher. I'm an author. I just published my book as well. There are so many different things that I have tried to do and have been successful in. And I would not have done it if I had not taken that leap of faith from where I was at ground zero. And I have to owe it all to the person that I was at that time to have taken that leap of faith.
Yeah, I love what you said about, I mean, when we're talking again, going back about the perception of your parents speaking in confidence and your sister speaking in calmness, that, you know, it matters. It matters the way that we talk, but also that ability for other people to affect us in their own belief in us. And I think genuinely that she probably said those words to you because she knew that you were going to figure it out, and you were like you were spinning mentally into this like really bad place.
Yes.
It's like, you don't need to like back up, you know, like let's look at the forest instead of just like the chaos that's happening in your little part. And recognize that you don't have to have all the answers. And I think that there is so much wisdom in that, because when we come up against trials in our lives and setbacks, a lot of times we do that mental spin. Like, what are we going to do? 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 You know, like it just gets out of control, and then it causes the anxiety attacks, and then we're not breathing well. And then all like it just spins into this gigantic thing. And there is an opportunity in that to take a step back. You know, and I know that in trials and in my life and even in my married life, you know, one of the things that I'll tell my husband a lot of time is, well, they can't eat us. I mean, like there's a point where, yeah, we could lose everything, right? Because we are also entrepreneurs, and we could lose all the money, we could lose all the possessions, all the things, but at the end of the day, they can't take us. They can't take our inner drive. They can't take the knowledge that we've gained. And those are the things that actually get you to the next level. And I love that you touched on that about who you were at that point, because it wasn't really the circumstances around you that created the opportunity. It was what was inside of you that created that opportunity, that you were like, okay, this isn't what I was expecting. This isn't necessarily ideal, but I'm going to take what I have and what I've gained inside of myself, and I'm going to make this work. And I'm going to start taking baby steps, even if I have to, and which, you know, looked like freelancing for you at that time, and build line upon line, precept upon precept, one step at a time to get yourself to a place where I love what you know, when you talk about the things that you've accomplished in your life, there is a visible confidence and pride to what you have done, that you're happy with where you are. And I think that that's so great, because so many people, it's never enough, right?
Yes.
Like it's like they walk around so unhappy because the things that they have attained, it's never enough. And I love the example that you are setting, that, you know, you've got lots of irons in the fire and you've got lots of streams of income that are happening, and I mean, you're very spread out, but there's joy in what you've created.
Yes.
So
Absolutely.
why do you think that is? What do you think that, you know, from your experience and what you've created, and maybe it's a cultural thing, that allows you the opportunity or the ability to be able to look at it in that way? Because I know that in the United States, a lot of times, you know, people have that C-suite office and they're so miserable. So what do you think that the difference is there?
I think that's one thing that's very common even here. I mean, you have to be in a certain place, in a certain country, you know, in a certain kind of office to feel successful. But I think, and this is actually the premise of my entire book, Christy, I'm not even kidding. I was so frustrated by the fact that everybody was just walking around, just not happy with where they were. And that's actually why I wrote my book. And the reason why you hear me today and I'm speaking with so much confidence and pride is because I have defined my success for myself, period. I do not care about what other people define success as. For me, I define my own milestones, I define my own goals, I define what success means to me. And in no way am I pressured to feel successful only when I hit 6 or 7 figures. No, for me, it doesn't matter. I mean, the name of my book is 0 to 4 figures. You know, it's the beginning part of my journey, and I've made it here. And for me to have set my own success, it gives me that sense of pride, one, and it also gives me that mental relief, you know, because it's never going to be enough if I keep depending on someone else's definition for success. And I think for me, understanding that was a pivoting point in my entrepreneurial journey as well, because on this journey, it's a really, really, really long way to get to 6 figures. You know, you see all of these overnight successes, but you don't understand that almost always there is years and years of effort that go into that one night of overnight success. You know,
Yes.
either putting in education, putting in the effort for building a sustainable, solid foundation. And I think because of that perception, a lot of us, and me included when I first started, we think that everything will get done in the timeline that we think it will. And it never does, never, ever, ever. If it does, I'd be really surprised, but it never does. And I think understanding that has been one of the most, I would say, liberating feelings for me on this entrepreneurial journey. And it comes from learning that only I get to choose what I define as success, and only I get to see myself as a success. It doesn't matter if anybody else views me or does not view me, as long as I look at myself in the mirror and I know, yes, I have hit these goals, I have hit these milestones that I define for myself, I am a success, and that's enough for me. It's not that I don't have other goals to hit. I do. Of course I do. There is somewhere else that I want to get, but I acknowledge all my little wins. I make sure that I take the time to celebrate every single step that I have taken along this way. And I think that's where the perception comes.
Man, that was amazing. It's so wise. It's so wise. And I think that so many people miss the mark completely, and they go their whole lives in misery,
Yes.
trying to reach somebody else's perception of success. And
Yes.
they never actually arrived there, because it wasn't that success wasn't meant for them. It was meant for the
No.
person who achieved it. And so they are
Absolutely.
always sitting in a spot where they're like, I'm not measuring up, I'm not measuring up, I'm not measuring up, instead of saying, I'm going to sit here in this moment and acknowledge how far I've come to
Yes.
this point, and acknowledge the things that I've figured out along the way, which is so wise. I love that answer. That was just like mic drop.
Thank you.
Um,
Thank you,
the
Christy.
the thing that I think along the way too, the last thing that I really want to touch on, and it's something that you and I both have in common. So I moved out of my parents' house when I was 18. I had just graduated 6 months prior. I had grown up in a really small town, and I just wanted something more for myself. And so I moved to a new state, into a new place. I didn't really know anybody. I was crashing at a friend's house until I had somewhere to live. I didn't have a job. I had like $100 to my name, which was not going to get me very far. And it was like the one thing that I kept telling myself, and I know that you told yourself a lot along the way too, was I will figure it out.
Oh, yes.
So talk a little bit about that, about this ability, because there are some people I think that don't have that they have a lot of trepidation and maybe they don't trust themselves in a way that allows them to move through life with a I will figure it out mentality. So one, how did you get that mentality? And two, how were you able to utilize that to create the success that you've created?
Okay, so great question. So let me first answer the first part. The first part is, how did I get to a point where I trusted myself to find a way? And I think that one of the primary reasons why you can't trust yourself is because you listen to other people not trusting you, and you start to believe that. You believe their line of thought. And I want all of you out there listening, I want you to take a second, pause, because this is something that I did as well. Take a second, pause, think about every single obstacle that you have overcome up until now. You've already done it, okay? Think about how you navigated through each and every single one of those circumstances. I want you to write it down, or tell yourself in a video diary, whatever it is that you can go back and read, okay? And I did this. I wrote it down, and then I looked back from a third person's perspective, and I said, heck, this girl is amazing. You know, she figured out something out of nothing. And that's how I started trusting. It was an actual process for me to say, no, I'm not going to listen to other people's line of thought. I know what I have achieved up until now. Even if it is first place in the swimming competition when I was in grade 1, whatever it is that you have overcome and you have succeeded, take a note of that. See how you navigated those circumstances, and you yourself will start believing that you will always find a way. Okay, that is, I personally, for me, that's the universal truth. You will always find a way, because today you are here, and you are ready for round, I don't know, 500,000 that life is throwing at you, but you are still here. You know, you might not realize it because of the number of battles that you've had up until now, but you are here. You are here ready for the next round. And I think that's commendable. I think that means you have all the right to trust yourself. You've earned it, absolutely earned it. So that is one way that was the way that I started learning how to trust myself. Now coming to the point where, how do you trust yourself in terms of your business? Now, when I say I trust myself, it's not that I think I have it all figured out. No, it doesn't mean that. It means that if I don't know something, I trust that I will learn how to do it, or I will ask for help, or I will find someone who knows what to do. Okay, that is what trusting yourself means. A lot of people, again, a reason why they don't feel like they can trust themselves is because they think that means they need to have all the answers, and that's not true. Trusting yourself means that you will just find whatever it is to get you out of that, or to work around it as well. Okay, so that to me is what trusting myself is, and I do it without any doubt. I mean, if you ask me, there's only one person that I trust. I can't even say that about my own parents, but I will say that about myself. And that's where you should get yourself to. You know, you have to have that inexplicable trust in yourself, because you are here. You've made it all the way up until here. I think that shows you've earned the right to trust yourself. So that's one. Then coming to your second question, Christy, how do I apply it to my business and how does it help me grow? The first thing is, one, I understand that there are certain things lacking in me. When I trust myself, it also means I know what are my strengths, what are my weaknesses, what are my limitations. I understand where I come from. Okay. And when I understand where I come from, I know how to get myself to a place where I can be successful, whether that is taking the help of my mentor, whether that's hiring someone for the skills that I lack in, or whether it is maybe, I guess I would say, watching a YouTube course or going for a full-fledged course to hone my skills in one particular aspect that I'm already good at, but I need to get better at. So that is one way that I would extrapolate it. Your thoughts, Christy?
I love that. I actually, yeah, I was like over here, like writing down notes, because I think that it definitely hit something home for me, because there are people in my life I know that don't trust themselves implicitly, right? That they don't have that I will figure it out kind of mentality, which boggles my mind, because they are like the most capable people that I know. and that they've never, I think that you hit it on the head when you said that a lot of times we don't trust ourselves because we think we have to have all the answers.
Mm,
We're not willing to ask the people who actually have the answers, right? Like there's only so much capacity, and there really, I mean, it's proven in just your story, right? Like there's only so many things that we're actually interested in pursuing and
absolutely.
having knowledge on, right? Like, so you can make yourself go out and understand engineering, and yeah, you understand it, but it's not something that like lights you up, you know? And
No.
so when you go to build a house or whatever, you will likely hire an engineer to be, you know, to do
Absolutely.
that kind of thing, because it's not your thing. And so
Absolutely.
whether it's in our personal life, in our relationships, in our business, maybe even within something within ourselves that is just like a little bit off and we need some help, it's good to pull outside people in, that those things that it does light them up to do marketing, to do advertising, to do the writing aspect of it, to write the blog articles or to write the copy, or you know, to shoot the videos or to do the accounting work. Like, oh my gosh, I tell my accountant
Hate
every,
accounting. I can't.
I'm like, I'm so grateful there are people like you in the world, because this just kills me. And I think that that's where the beauty of humanity comes into play.
Yes.
We're all so different, and we all have unique upbringings that bring us a different perspective and also different interests that we can bring them together, and it just creates a unique ability within ourselves, and everybody has it. And I love that this is, you know, that this is the way that you choose to show up in the world, is showing your unique abilities and allowing other people to recognize that they have their own, and that they can
Yes.
show up in unique ways too. I just,
Absolutely.
I really love that and respect that. So yeah, I do. I think that asking for help, part of it, but also what you had said about getting to a point where you are ready to write down all of the things that you've come
Yeah.
up against thus far, because
Yes.
obviously if you're already here, like you said, you've already overcome 500,000 things that you're just not acknowledging, because
Absolutely.
everybody can figure it out. It's just, you have to realize, again, it goes back to kind of what we were talking about achieving this level of success and finding pride in it, right? It's achieving this level of like, I've figured it out and finding pride in it. And I think that a lot of people just dismiss everything up until this point. And it's like, it's that same mentality that you were talking about with the overnight success people, right? Like it wasn't, nothing is an overnight success. It took years to get to that point. And I think everybody demands of themselves an overnight success mentality while negating and neglecting everything that has brought them to this point. So I just think it's great. You know, all of it is really tying together in personal life and in business life, and in asking for help and in recognizing your own ability to get yourself to this point. And I loved your recommendation of writing out your skill sets and the things that you're good at, and that you recognize your own weaknesses and your own strengths, your own limitations, so that you can bring people in that love that. You know, I mean, my husband and I, this is something, we've been married for 22 years, but we've recently realized how our differences are very compatible in our business.
Mm.
And in previously, when we've tried to do business together, it's been almost like a like not a meeting of the minds, that's for sure. Just kind of butting your heads together, because he wants things done one way and I want things done one way. And it's a great opportunity to say, okay, well, we may see things differently, but how can we work together? And that's the beauty in asking for people, you know, for help. I'm sure that, you know, you weren't the one that was like compiling all the paper for your book and binding your book and, you know, all of the things, right? Like there's help
Yeah.
there. There's people that are helping you be able to do the things that you don't know how to do, but that's the thing that they enjoy doing.
Yes.
You know, and I know that that's kind of a large scale idea of what I'm saying, but it doesn't have to be that large of a scale in the day-to-day things that we pursue in our lives. So
I do want to add one thing
yeah.
though. I actually do it every year, and I think it might be helpful for your audience as well. So, the skill set thing, you know, just listing out your strengths, I always write it every single year. December 31st, this is what you will see me do. I write a long list of what my strengths are, what are my accomplishments, and I write a tiny letter to myself that in case I'm feeling low during the next year,
Mm.
anytime during the next year, I always take it and I read it. And it has helped me so much, Christy, because so many times you don't remember the things that you've done. You don't remember. So when you're happy and you're feeling fulfilled, take some time, write down, and most naturally, it will come to you very, very naturally when you're in a very positive state. Write it, keep it safely. I keep it in a file actually, and I lock it up. And that's usually the last resort for me when I feel like everything's just down in the dumps. I take a look, I read that small letter that I've written for myself as well, just to hype me up and give me that pep talk. And it really works. It's amazing how even the accomplishment, like I said, I won a swimming contest when I was in grade 1, and that still motivates me even to this day, because I think I was just like 5 feet tall. I was the shortest girl, and everybody were huge, like they were really, really tall, and I still won that competition. And for me, that's a sense of pride, and I still get the, I guess, the sense of pride even to this day. It motivates me. So I really recommend doing this exercise. It works for me. I do it every single year. Highly recommend it.
That is a great recommendation. It's a great exercise to do. And, maybe for the people that are listening, you don't have to wait until December 31st.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
What you want to do is find the day where you're like vibing in yourself and
Yeah.
you like, I got this, I got this, I got this. And
Yeah,
then
like,
you yourself a letter on that day. So down days,
absolutely.
on the
Yes,
down
yes.
days, you've got your good angel, your positive voices that are talking
Yeah.
to you instead of all the negative ones that are talking to you like day in and day out. That's awesome. Prit, thank you so much for coming on this show. Where can people follow you and your journey online?
Oh yeah, so I am the marketing nomad everywhere. I'm on there on Instagram, YouTube, podcast. I'm very quirky as a person, so you will find my quirkiness everywhere. And of course, the name of my book is 0 to 4 Figures: Lessons Learned by a Broke CEO. You can find that on Amazon. It's got 61 lessons, stories and lessons from the first 3 years of my entrepreneurial journey. And the main premise is that you've got to learn how to define success for yourself. I mean, if I could write a whole 81,000 word book on how I got to 4 figures, I think that's just sending a message that you should value every single obstacle that you have overcome, value every single success that whether it's 1 figure or 2 figure or 3 figure or 4 figures, whatever it is, please take the time to celebrate where you are and acknowledge that you have made it this far. If there's one thing that you take away from this podcast episode, and just by meeting me, I want it to be that you get to define your success. You get to absolutely cheer yourself on for where you are at today. That's it. Today you are here, and that is freaking awesome. So yeah, thank you so much, Christy, for having me on your podcast. It's been such a blast.
Awesome. I love it. Thanks, Prit. We'll catch up with you later.